My heart skipped a beat when I heard a rumor about BlackRock and XRP. Could the world's largest asset manager be quietly plotting something huge with our favorite crypto? Well, I went down a rabbit hole to find out, and you won't believe what I discovered at the end of it. Now, I've been holding XRP since 2020 through thick and thin and downright crazy times. And let me tell you, I stumbled on news that has me more excited than I've been in years. So picture this, right? I'm sipping on my late night coffee, scrolling through crypto headlines, and I come across an interview where an analyst basically challenges BlackRock on whether XRP might be their next big move. BlackRock, yes, this is the $12 trillion gorilla of finance, actually responded with some clues. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing that whole story as a personal adventure, how a skeptical XRP holder, me, turned way more bullish after connecting some of these dots. So by the end, you're going to see why XRP might be on the cusp of something big. Here's a hint, a BlackRock-sized big. Oh, and here's also a quick heads up. I've got a free educational Discord server. The link is in the description down below. It's where XRP holders and crypto enthusiasts like us chat and swap insights every single day. It's a friendly spot to learn, to vent, and to celebrate the wins together. And while we're on the topic of cool resources, I also want to mention an exchange that I've been using lately called Blowfin. Full transparency though, I do have an affiliate link for Blowfin down in the description, which means that if you do use it, it supports the channel here, helps me keep the lights on, and of course the coffee brewing at midnight. Now of course, it costs you nothing extra if you do go ahead to sign up and trade using it. I only partner with services that I actually genuinely trust, and Blowfin's been a pretty solid exchange for me so far. Anyway, let's get back to the story because this is one of a doozy. So here's kind of where it all started. Crypto ETF analyst Nate Geraci made a rather bold prediction in public. He said that he expects BlackRock to file for a spot XRP ETF in the United States at some point. Now that kind of caught my eye. I mean, BlackRock has been already kind of made, I guess, waves with Bitcoin and Ethereum funds. So why not XRP next, right? Well, it sounded kind of far-fetched at first, right? BlackRock usually kind of plays it safe and sticks to the biggest and most established assets. XRP's big, but it's not Bitcoin big. And plus, BlackRock's not exactly known for tipping their hand early. Well, in this interview, Geraci didn't ask BlackRock directly, saying, hey, are you going to do an XRP ETF? Because he knew that they just wouldn't answer. Instead, he cleverly asked BlackRock's head of digital assets, Robbie Mitchnick, about their plans for future crypto ETFs in general. It was kind of a smart move, right? Put them on the spot without actually saying XRP outright. Now, Mitchnick's answer is kind of where things get interesting. Robbie Mitchnick basically outlined the checklist that BlackRock uses when considering any new crypto product. Now, he didn't confirm nor deny any XRP plans, but he did gave us all a bit of a peek into their mindset. And as I kind of listened, I'm mentally checking off boxes for XRP. First and foremost, he said client demand drives pretty much everything. So in plain English, if BlackRock's customers aren't asking for it, then BlackRock probably aren't going to be touching it. They only really cook what the customers order, if you know what I mean. No demand, no product. So it's kind of like a restaurant then, right? Even if the chef can make a fancy dish, doesn't mean that they won't put it on the menu unless, of course, enough people actually want to buy it. Then he mentioned other factors, things like market cap, maturity, liquidity of the asset. Basically, if the coin's big enough, old enough, and trading enough to be worth BlackRock's time, and how would an ETF for that coin fit into their clients' broader investment strategies? Well, BlackRock's not going to launch some kind of fringe, tiny token fund just for the giggles, right? They actually want assets that are heavyweight, battle-tested, and make sense in a portfolio. And crucially, Mitchnick said this evaluation evaluation is a continuous process. BlackRock is open to new crypto ideas, but is super cautious, right? They're always monitoring. There's no rushing, right? And think of them, I guess, like the giant cargo ship. They don't just turn on a dime, right? But when they do turn, everyone is going to notice the splash. Now, at this point, my skepticism started turning into a bit of curiosity. I'm like, all right, does XRP hit those marks then? Time to play along with the BlackRock checklist. Client demand. Well, there's definitely some. I mean, just look at the XRP holders, right? We're a passionate bunch, right? But beyond us, would BlackRock's clients want an XRP ETF? Possibly, right? If they're seeing what we're seeing. And actually, we have evidence that they might. Just recently, a smaller player launched the REX-Osprey XRP ETF, and it saw about $37.5 million in trading volume on the very first day. That's day one. Clearly, there was pent-up demand for an XRP investment vehicle. And guess what? There are multiple XRP ETF proposals filed by other asset managers like 21 Shares, Franklin Templeton, and more, waiting for the SEC approval. So you don't file for an ETF unless you think investors will actually buy it. So, check. Client demand for XRP exposure exists, and it's growing. What about the fundamentals? Well, XRP is no lightweight, is it? Right? It's currently the third largest non-stablecoin crypto by market cap. Now, as I speak, it's around $165 billion in value. That's kind of the ballpark of its market cap. That's pretty huge. Not quite Bitcoin or Ethereum level, but it's in the same league as other major assets. What about maturity? Well, XRP's been around since 2012. It's not some new kid on the block. It's more like a battle-hardened veteran of crypto. It's been through multiple market cycles, global adoption experiments, and even high-profile lawsuit. Which kind of brings me to the big one then, the regulatory clarity. Now, up until recently, XRP had a kind of black cloud overhead because of that SEC lawsuit. A lot of big institutions wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole during that uncertainty. But now, finally, that cloud has cleared with the lawsuit essentially done and over. Now, the court basically ruled that XRP itself is not a security when sold on exchanges. At least that is the takeaway. Meaning that XRP is in a way blessed for these companies to actually handle it. Now, that was one of the last big barriers then, and the SEC case resolved, XRP is way more appealing to the Wall Street crowd than it ever was a year ago. So, on BlackRock's checklist, market cap check, liquidity check, XRP trades billions daily, globally, right? Maturity, check. Regulatory concerns largely resolved. Now, honestly, XRP is starting to look like a prime candidate. Now, remember how I said BlackRock cares about client demand above all else, right? Well, let's dig a little tad deeper into that. Now, BlackRock isn't going to launch an XRP fund just because we on crypto Twitter are all hyped about it. Right? They do it because, pension funds or hedge funds and financial advisors start saying, hey, we want in on XRP, get us a safe way to do it. Now, is that happening? Well, there's a clue. Those other XRP ETF applications that I mentioned mean that some pretty savvy asset managers think that there's institutional demand brewing. And if any of those ETFs get approved by the SEC, which could happen as soon as next month, for some filings, then I suspect that they'll actually attract a lot of attention. So if the SEC gives the nod to an XRP ETF, even from a smaller company, and money starts flowing into it, well, that's a huge green light for BlackRock. They'll see that and likely say, okay, game on. In fact, it's kind of BlackRock's MO to not necessarily be the first, but to be the biggest and the best. Let others kind of test the waters, if you will, then come in and basically with a tidal wave. Now, speaking of tidal waves, let me share a moment when my jaw dropped during all of this research. I looked into how BlackRock's existing crypto funds have performed. And get this, BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF and related products have already pulled in around $60.25 billion of inflows. And yes, that was billion with a B. That's more money than the market cap of most cryptos. Their Ethereum fund isn't too shabby either. That is about $13.35 billion in inflows. These are gigantic numbers. BlackRock doesn't do things small, right? When they enter a market, they dominate it. So I'm sitting there thinking to myself, holy smokes, if BlackRock ever did an XRP ETF and it even got a fraction of that kind of money, it could be a game changer for XRP's valuation and acceptance. Now, I like kind of felt, I guess, like the meme of the guy with the galaxy brain, right? It all just started to click together. Now, I've got to admit something. When I first bought XRP back in 2020, it was kind of on a hunch and a bit of a hope, right? I kind of liked the idea of what Ripple, the company, was actually doing, and XRP's fast tech, etc. But I also knew that it wasn't going to be the golden child of crypto media. Then the SEC came after it, and for a while, holding XRP kind of felt like sitting on a roller coaster that was stuck in a tunnel. I'm not going to lie, I had moments where I thought, did I back the wrong horse? But of course I held on because sometimes I'm stubborn or just diamond-handed if we're being nice about it. And now, here we are in 2025, the lawsuit is behind us, XRP survived, and suddenly you have BlackRock even entertaining questions about it. Now that, to me, is vindication. It's kind of like the universe telling us XRP holders, you might be onto something, guys. Now, before I get too carried away with my XRP love fest here, let me slip on the sensible hat for just a moment. Now, you know what's coming, right? Because this one might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Alright, phew, we had to say it, I do feel better for it, and hopefully my lawyer is smiling somewhere about it. Okay, let's get back to the fun stuff. So, where were we? BlackRock and XRP, the potential love story that it is. Now, to be super clear here, BlackRock has not announced anything yet. There are no official XRP ETF filings from them, at least not as far as today. But we've got some serious, strong signals here, right? If I were to put on my detective hat, I would say that all clues point to an XRP ETF being incredibly plausible. The demand is rising, the conditions are finally right, and BlackRock's own criteria are basically being met one by one. So let me talk about strategy for a second, because BlackRock isn't in the business of losing, are they? Right? They probably waited for Bitcoin until they were sure that they could win, and they did, by an absolutely dwarfing the competition in inflows. Now, they rolled out an Ethereum strategy, and it also is dominating. Now, imagine you're BlackRock, and you've proven that you can bring in tens of billions with crypto ETFs. Now, you're looking around for the next big opportunity. What's number three on the list of established cryptos? Well, XRP. The number 3 crypto by market cap, excluding all the stablecoin nonsense. Number 1 is Bitcoin, check, you did it. Number 2 is Ethereum, check, done. And number 3 is XRP. It's interesting, isn't it? Because it's almost just too logical, isn't it? And here's another angle. BlackRock's clients might be asking, hey, you gave us Bitcoin and Ether exposure, but what about XRP? Now we hear it's making waves and might even get its own ETFs from other firms. Where's ours? Now, BlackRock, they won't want to be in a position where clients, is going to say, let's say Franklin Templeton or another company altogether, just so that they can get XRP exposure. But they'll want to offer it in-house if the interest is real. And that's incentive, right? It's not like, I guess it is like if you're a store that sells Coke and Pepsi, and you see a lot of people asking for Dr. Pepper. Eventually, you're going to stock Dr. Pepper so that they don't go to another store, maybe next door. Now, I should probably mention, because you guys know that I keep it real, and is that even if everything does align, we have to kind of watch the SEC. Now, the SEC still has to approve an XRP ETF, right? And as of, at least I mentioned earlier, a whole bunch of proposals are on their desk at the moment. Now, from next month onwards, they're going to be deciding yes or no on some of them. So if the SEC says there's no way to all of the XRP ETFs, then BlackRock is not going to fight a losing battle. But, and here's the bullish part, there's a lot of speculation in the SEC, or at least that the SEC might actually approve one or more of these XRP funds, just like they eventually did for Bitcoin and for Ether ETFs. Now, if that happens, it's off to the races. And once that door is open, BlackRock can just stroll through whenever they want. By the way, speaking of getting exposure to XRP and crypto, let me drop this in here. Now, I use BitGet Exchange from time to time, and I've got an affiliate link for BitGet that's down in the description as well. It's the same deal as before, so if you do sign up and use it and trade via it, it does actually help support the channel here, and I do greatly appreciate it. Whether you're trading or just buying to kind of hodl like I do, you should always choose a reputable platform and keep your kind of security really tight. That is a shameless plug, and it is now over, so thanks for bearing with me. But I've got to keep the FTC happy with all of these disclosures, right? All right, let's take a step back and picture the bigger scene with me here, because it's a few months from now, headlines will flash, XRP ETF approved. Maybe it's one of those kind of filings from 21 Shares or another firm that gets the first green light. The crypto world will be going bananas. XRP, the once underdog, now has the fully legitimate investment vehicle in the United States market. The price probably jumping around a bit like a kid on sugar. No guarantees, but you kind of expect a bit of a reaction. Now, in the midst of all of that frenzy, who comes out to play? BlackRock. Now, they might just announce, yep, we're in, filing for our own XRP ETF. Now, if you thought that Bitcoin's ETF news was big, imagine the shockwave of BlackRock endorsing XRP. Wall Street money would pour in, because when BlackRock offers something, every financial advisor from New York to Tokyo will be paying attention. Now, it would mean, at least would be kind of like adding rocket fuel to an already rather hot fire, right? As an XRP holder, just imagining this scenario gives me a few goosebumps, right? I'm not saying that it's guaranteed to happen exactly like that, but it's totally within the realm of possibility now. A realm that didn't really exist a couple years ago when XRP was tied up in court and left for dead by many. And even before any official move, the fact that we're even talking about BlackRock and XRP in the very same sentence is a pretty huge positive sign. It means that XRP has graduated into the big league conversations. Remember, right, BlackRock's Robbie Mitchnick didn't laugh off the question or say, nah, XRP's not even on our list. He actually gave it a respectable kind of answer. Basically, we'll do what fits our criteria, and XRP is incredibly fitting that criteria, right? Or increasingly fitting that criteria, if you will. Now, that tells me that BlackRock sees what's actually happening with XRP, the growing market cap, the community, the use cases, the improving regulatory clarity, and they're not ignoring it. They're just waiting for the right time. So here's my takeaway from this little investigative adventure. BlackRock might not have passed the go button on an XRP ETF just yet, but all of the pieces are actually falling into place. They care about client demand, and the demand signals for XRP are flashing green. They need the asset to be big and legit. Well, XRP is big, and it is getting legitimized by the day, thanks to that lawsuit win and the rising adoption. They're cautious, and rightly so, but being cautious is different from being uninterested. Now, in my eyes, BlackRock is interested, just patiently watching. As someone who's kind of been a long-term bullish on XRP, I do feel more confident than I ever have done in my decision to hodl. And I'm not betting the farm or telling you guys to remember the financial advice or not financial advice disclaimer from earlier, but personally I am comfortable and even excited about holding my XRP stash right now. In fact, I'd proudly say that I've held it since 2020 and that I am still here. Maybe even a little battle scarred, but I'm still grinning what is potentially unfolding now. It's honestly kind of poetic. The asset that was once cast as the outsider by the regulators could soon be embraced by the largest asset manager on the planet. So talk about a bit of a turnaround. Of course, I'm going to be watching those SEC decisions quite closely, and you can bet that I'll be shouting from the rooftops, or, tweeting from my couch, if BlackRock does make a move. We XRP holders have been through an awful lot, but moments like these, where things start lining up, are why we've actually held on as long as I have. So, are you as curious or cautiously excited as I am to see if BlackRock makes the leap? Now, I'd like to hear what you think. You can come and chat with me in our Discord or drop a comment down below. As always, stay informed, stay safe in these volatile markets, and never invest more than you are willing to lose. But right now, I'll admit, I've got a good feeling about where all of this is heading. So if you've enjoyed this little adventure with me in XRP land, then make sure to smash that like button, hit the subscribe to the channel, and join me in the next one, because the crypto journey is only just getting started.